Mr. Sean Edwards, DJs and entertainment. Man, what do you do, man?
What do I do? That's like the most loaded question I've ever had.
What do you do for a living?
What do I do for a living?
Yes.
Currently, back in the day, in between, when are we talking? What's the timeline?
Let's
so I can
start
set it
right
straight.
here, right now.
Okay,
Because
right now.
Let me set this up.
All right.
We can obviously see you're a black man.
I hope so, man. I hope so.
But you do something that most black men have not gotten into for years. And only guys that I can recall were Siskel and Ebert.
Ooh.
Which were two white guys.
Yeah, man. Rocking the Argyle sweaters.
Yes, sir.
Tweed jackets.
And we're going to date ourselves because we're going to look at the 80s.
I don't mind doing that. I'm old. I've been around, man. You don't get to where I've been at unless you like traveled and been on a journey. Nah, you're referencing Siskel and Ebert. Probably two of the most well-known, if not most known, film critics that have ever existed in the history of movies. Yeah, they had a show back in the day that started out on PBS, ironically, that became nationally syndicated, and they were known for the thumbs up, thumbs down. Your movie's dope, thumbs up. Your movie's trash, thumbs down. And they ruled the world, man. They could make or break a movie like none other back in the day. That's when you had the power, you could do that. That's before this little thing came along called the internet. Now nobody can make or break a movie, not even me. But no, they were film critics. I mean, that's what I currently do and have been doing on Fox 4 News since July 2000. It's funny because I never had any intention of ever being on television. Like, I didn't major in broadcasting. I never wanted to work at a TV station. It was an opportunity that sort of fell in my lap that I took advantage of. Not saying that it was a gimme,
Right.
but at the time, I was an editor and a staff writer at the Pitch Weekly. I was actually the first black staff writer, first black editor, which is insane because I didn't even start working there until 1995. So that shows you how crazy it is for blacks and opportunities in the media and how hard it was back in the day. So I'm the first black writer, first black editor. So my official job at the Pitch was to write hard news stories, which is what I did. This is back when people actually used to read. And I was knocking out 5, 6, 7, 8, 10,000 long word stories. You got the cover story assignment. It was a big deal. So I was knocking out cover stories, which primarily focused on hard news. But I also used my perspective as a black man to talk about things that directly impacted the community. Like, one of my cover stories was about the disparity in grocery stores on the east side and the west side of Kansas City. Nobody had really addressed. I discovered this swim team, this black swim team at Central High School, and a few of the swimmers were really good. And this was way before the movie Pride, which starred Terrence Howard, which was about black swimmers. So I'm kind of mad at that. That should have been my movie deal. No, that story, it was like an incredible story. I wrote one of the first pieces on the struggles of the 18th Divine Historic Jazz District. They have been trying to get that area right for a really long time. So I was doing all these amazing things. I also wrote a couple of columns, like one of my all-time most famous columns I wrote was why African Americans shouldn't celebrate Independence Day. This is this was back in the 90s when it was kind of this stuff was like this was some cutting edge stuff back then. Now it's nothing, but back then people was like, whoa, this dude is like, okay. And I also wrote a column like why black people shouldn't use the N-word, stuff like that. So I was doing all of that, but working at the Pitch Weekly was cool. It was an arts and entertainment paper. It was distributed free all over the city. It had a huge impact on the arts and entertainment situation in Kansas City. So it was a dope job. And I always remember people would be like, how do you get paid? Because it's free. Well, they sold advertising. They sold a lot of advertising. But, their main economic force was the classifieds in the back of the paper, because that was basically like online dating before apps and the internet, and the back pages, man, like with the women like, hey, I'm 5'10" and I like to dance, like call me. That generated a lot of revenue. So no, it was a great salary, benefits, all that, but it was a fantastic job. But I love it because it was in this really creative environment. So we would always sit around like in the break room or just in the office in general and would talk about like cultural stuff. Like we would talk about movies, we talk about television shows, music, and you know, I was always in on the conversation. I remember the editor at the time was Bruce Rogers, and he overheard me like talking about music and movies, and so he pulled me aside and was like, you know what? I'm going to assign you to be one of the permanent film critics.
Wow.
So we had 6 at the time. So I was one of the 6 film critics and started writing movie reviews. And so at the time, around I think it was either late 1999, early 2000, there was a guy by the name of Doug Moore who had done movie reviews on Fox 4 News for like 30 years. Like, you know, he's a cool dude. 30 years. I know him. He used to go to the screenings. And so I don't know what the official story is. They either got rid of him or he retired or something happened. He was just getting a little more crotchety, you know. And you know, viewers are like, this old man's kind of annoying. So Fox 4 was actively looking for someone to take his place. And one of the producers there, she used to read the pitch all the time. And so this is a lesson, girls and boys, that you should always remember. Always be you, and good things will happen. Because I was a hip hop head, and I used to love to go out and party. So it was this club called Oasis. And my boy Rome used to throw the party, like epic nights. I spent.
What's the dates on Oasis?
So Oasis kicked off around late 1998.
Okay.
And it hit its peak around 99, 2000. So I was in the club around late 1999. He had this concept called Fat Tuesdays where it buck wild every Tuesday night. Like people would start showing up around 8 or 9. Like the nerds got there around 8 or 9. Regular people got there around 10 or 11. And then your party all-stars got there at 1 in the morning because this thing went to like 3:34, sometimes 5 because they was real loose with the, liquor control. Southwest Boulevard, late 90s, not what it is in 2023. So you could get away with a lot more stuff. But epic nights. And so I'm partying with this producer from Fox and networking. I remember one time she's like, I'm gonna call you, I got an idea. And I thought she was like, call me because she like wanna go, whatever. So it was a few weeks later, and so I got the call while I was at the pitch, and she was like, hey, Fox is looking for a film critic. And I was like, I ain't never really been on air. Like, that's not what I do. So I thought they was gonna hire me to write the reviews, and then they would have somebody else read it. So she set up the meeting. I go to Fox 4 3030 Summit, literally meet with the station manager at the time was Stan Knotts. The news director at the time was Mike McDonald, like reminded me of the old dude from the Mary Tyler Moore Show. Like he was like only thing he cared about was hard news. He hated entertainment. And I'm like, well, why am I sitting here? He's like, entertainment's bullshit. We don't want to talk about fires, murders, and politics, that kind of thing. I'm like, right, exactly. So I'm like, why am I even here? But I met with all of them, and they were like, oh, okay, we like you. You can do this. And I'm like, really? And I remember Stan Knott was like, can you start Friday? This is like a Tuesday or Wednesday. Wow. And he's like, can you start Friday? And I'm like, in the back of my mind, like, do they not know? I have never ever done anything in front of a camera. Now, mind you, I studied television when I went to Lincoln College Prep back in the day. Cause we used to walk down when American Cablevision, which is now Spectrum, was located right down the street.
All right, hold up. So, we gotta put some data on it.
1983.
Yes.
1983. Yeah, 1983. So we had Miss Simon. Miriam Simon was the teacher. It was called Television Film Production. 1983, Lincoln College Prep, which was actually called Lincoln Academy at the time. So that class was like 7th hour, because we had 7 hours back in the day. And so that class was purposely during 7th hour, because 7th hour was always a little longer and you got leeway because, that's when the last bell would ring and you get to your bus or whatever. And so they merged that into a class and an after-school activity so you could stay longer at the TV station and catch what they called the late bus hunt. Because they had late buses. So we took that class. We had full control of the studios, which was dope. We had studios, and then we could check out the equipment. You could check out a 3/4 inch camera that came with the big box and the cord attached to it and just shoot stuff. And so we had a student television show called Check It Out.
Really?
That was the name. It was called Check It Out. I remember. So I was a producer because I was more of a producer person. Craig Tyson was director, and a couple of the other students were the on-air talent. I never did the on-air talent. I was one who was writing the shows and producing the shows, and Craig was good with switching. So he would switch the shows, and we would go to other schools and do interviews and cover stuff. It was dope. It was a legit show.
Check It Out. What was the general premise of it?
It was just like a news magazine format show where we talked about issues that affected students. Then someone would go on and do like a music review, and someone would go on and do a movie review, and then we would have like kids come on and perform. Somewhere, I don't know where these tapes are. It's kind of like Summer of Soul. Tapes just missing. You can find them and do something with it. But somewhere, I think there is a tape of Marcel Good on there rapping. And then one time I did this short film that we showed on the show. I did this whole concept where I pretended like the origins of hip hop started on 18th and Vine, because our school is right there. And this is when 18th and Vine was dilapidated. Like it was nothing going on. So we went down there and faked like these old guys were sitting in front of this old building, and they was like, "We got something we want to tell you." And cause I pretended like I was just walking, and it's like, "What's up, young blood?" And it's like, "Oh man, what's up?" And they kind of went into this story of how they started hip hop, and then it merged into them performing King of Rock. It's time it is. They couldn't, we made them look like they was old with makeup. They like, man, they don't know nothing. We the ones who started hip hop, and then it's like, let's show you. And how we did like that flashback, and then they was like performing. They was like lip syncing King of Rock, like.
So I gotta ask you.
Cause it was like Chris Rankin's. It was Chris Rankin's, Tony Talbert.
Okay.
Like I gotta find all. I don't know where the tapes are. I remember directing that, man. I was on my Spike Lee before I even knew Spike Lee existed.
I think we all.
Yeah.
I gotta ask, was this pre or post the movie that was made called Kansas City with Harry Belafonte?
Oh no, this is way pretty. I'm talking about.
So no sense. It was just.
No. This is 18th and Vine was like, dude.
I remember.
No. This is because Robert Altman didn't redo those fronts until they started production 94, 95. This is like 83, 84. Like this is years. I'm talking about. This is. Man, please. I think the only thing that was operating back then was Phil's Den.
Right.
No, that was a party spot.
Right.
Like that was the only thing that was open. Right. So that was the extent of my TV.
Gotcha.
Experience. Because I didn't even major in broadcast in college. When I went to Morehouse, I was a film major. I didn't want to do nothing in front of no camera. So I get this opportunity. It's Wednesday. They say, can you start Friday? I go on there Friday, and I was horrible. Like no one will ever see that tape. I'm glad. See, they archive a lot differently now. There was really no Google back then. There was no.
So we can't see the tape.
Nah, I don't even know. I think it's sad. We were talking about this the other day. I think you can only go back. The stuff that they really, really have archived, you can only go as far back as around 2010. Like, it's not good, but it is good. But that first review I did was horrible. And they put me. I remember. I sat at the anchor desk in between Mark Alford and Heather McMichael. And I remember they had a copy of the pitch, and they're like, this guy works for the pitch. Because they was trying to prove, because I had never been on TV, so they had to prove to the audience why I was there. Because they was like, you just can't have a black man pop up and start talking about movies. You guys show that he's qualified. So they held up, I remember they held up the copy and said, like, he writes for the pitch, he's qualified, people. He trusts us, he's qualified. So I did that, from the anchor desk for about a year, and people were mad confused. So this is back when people used to actually, all they did was call a TV station when it was something they didn't like. So it's funny, because I would do these reviews, I did them every Friday, and people would call and be like, we don't know if he likes the movie or not. And so we were like, oh man, people are really confused and we got to really help them out. So that's when we came up with the concept of the popcorn bag. So that didn't happen until because that's what everybody knows it from. Like, there's like, people don't even know my name, but they'll be like, that's the popcorn dude, that's the movie guy, that's the blood, but they know we branded that, like, so they know the popcorn bags. So we didn't come up with that until about a year later. And I remember it was a big whole debate, like, should it be 1 through 3, 1 through 4, 1 through 5, and then because, the graphics person was kind of like, special, like, they're like, we're not gonna do halves, it won't look right. So that's because people ask me that all the time, how come we don't do 3.5, 4.5? Well, it's because we want to keep the graphic consistent. Yeah, keep 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Just keep it consistent. There are no halves. We came up with that, and it stuck. And so that's the first evolution of the segment. And then we figured that the segment would be better if they added somebody that I can debate against to make it even more, like the whole First Take Stephen A. Smith concept before First Take Stephen A. Smith is to have somebody that you can, just like Siskel and Ebert, it added a little more gravitas to the situation. So like my first co-host was this young lady by the name of Andrea Perello, and then the next one was Melena Scantlin, who was the girl that was on this show, The Average Joe. So she was like super famous, and I was like, why are you gonna do this? But, she's trying to further her TV career. And, I mean, people knew her like all over the world. I mean, it's funny, the whole time she was co-hosting with me, every time I went somewhere, guys would always be like, can you give me her number? What is this?
You're the wingman.
Like, what is this, man? Tinder before Tinder? No, hell no. So, but nah, she was mad famous, and so then she did it for a little bit, and then she moved out to LA to become an actress. And so then Russ is the main partner I've been with for the longest. So it's he and I who do it, but it has been an unusual circumstance because growing up, I was mad into movies. My mom was into movies. She's the one who introduced me to movies. But the unfortunate thing about that is she was a school teacher. And anybody who has had a school teacher as a parent knows that is the worst thing in the world. Because I just simply asked her, like, I like what I'm seeing, I like what's going on. How do people make these? How do people make movies? And she would not answer me, but she threw me in the back. I remember we had a Volkswagen Beetle, blue, dark blue. She threw me in the back. We had car seats and seat belts back in the day. And she drove me straight to the Plaza Library. Beginnings, I was a writer first. Like, I just remember as a kid, I just loved to write. And so when I was at Lincoln Academy back in the day, I took the yearbook class or the journalism class with Mrs. Kelly. I remember we had an assignment, our first assignment, our freshman year, was to go to the homecoming. That's back when homecomings were a big deal, and write about the homecoming. So all 30 students wrote about the homecoming, and my story won and was selected to be in the yearbook. So if you pick up the yearbook from 1983, 84, that's my homecoming story. So that's like, that was like my first published piece. So I've been writing ever since. I wrote all through high school, I wrote all through college. Like, I wrote because I went to Morehouse in Atlanta, so I wrote for the Morehouse College paper, and Clark was next door. I wrote for the Clark. I was just writing full. Then, while I was in Atlanta, like, the thing that I discovered was, like, if you write about movies, you get to go see the movies for free, and if you write about concerts, you get to go to the concerts for free. So I was like plugged in. I was like, yo, I'm Sean Edwards with the Morehouse College paper. Like, I want to go to this show, that show, this show. And so that's kind of like where it caught on. And so when I would come home in the summer, I wouldn't, my parents weren't paid in full. So I looked up and drove to the Kansas City Globe newspaper that's on, what's that, Cherry, 29th and 29th and Cherry? Yeah, I think they were located like off of 29th and Cherry. So I literally drove there and met the publisher, Denise Jordan, and I was like, hey, I'm a college student. I wrote for the college paper, and I just want to, like, if you need any help, I can work here, if you need me to do anything. And I had all my clips from the college paper, and I was like, this is what I did. And she was like, okay, let's do it. Because, I just walked, so I started, I remember the first summer though, I only, because she wasn't, entertainment's always been weird for a lot of, people. So she was hesitant on the entertainment thing, but she needed someone to cover sports. So the first summer I actually wrote about sports. And so I got to, summertime, so I got to go to a gang of Free Royals games. It was cool. It was cool. So I started early not paying for nothing. I'm not paying. I'm like, oh, Bo Jackson? Yeah. That's back, that's back in the Bo Nose days. Yeah.
Sean Edwards providing such a rich interview. We took a turn. We wanted to kind of go to the basics, to the fundamentals, to the bricks of such a extraordinary career. We talked about desegregation within the Kansas City School District, which took place in the late 70s, early 80s. An interesting experiment, to say the least.
Way out in Independence, Missouri, it was the most horrifying experience ever. I still remember the first day of school when they bused us all the way out to Independence to go to Cordy Elementary School. Because not only did the people in the neighborhoods not want us there. I remember the very first day they were it was like a scene out of Selma. Like they were literally like yelling, like go back to where you came from and throwing shit at the bus and all. It was dude, that's all when people oh man, it was like what the I went from this like utopian environment. It was a whole different type of like what is going on? Dude, it was the worst. And then to make things even worse, like I remember my fourth grade teacher, man, she was horrible. Like she was like the woman that ratted on Emmett Till. Wow. She was like, you ain't gonna be nothing, you don't know nothing. I remember we got into an argument because my mother's originally from Princeton, New Jersey, like very prestigious, city in New Jersey, university, Princeton Ivy League school. Like my grandparents' house is literally 1, 2, 3 blocks away. And so she argued. I was like, well, because you know how that you had that first day of school back. Like, what did you do this summer? Right. So I was like, man, I flew to Princeton and hung out with my grandparents like I do every summer. Went to New York and she tried to tell me I didn't. I'm like, oh my God, this is not going to end well.
But that's a side story I do want to do as well, is that psychological experience that a lot of kids had because of
it almost took me out. Because I was trending. Right. I was trending in the right direction. And I was if I would have stayed at Nelson Elementary School, I would be Steven Spielberg right now. I was trending in the right direction. And then that misfire with this forced busing and integration just is like 1, 2, a million steps backwards, man.
Experiments. A good number of black students were just that when it came to integration, forced busing, desegregation, being shipped into neighborhoods and school districts that were not high quality, mid to low for sure, but most importantly, it was to be known by students as well as parents. We were not welcome in their neighborhoods or their school district. Psychological fear, for sure. But let's get back to the love.
That was my childhood. Like I said, I grew up in Friendship Village. It was cool. My mom was in the movies. I was in the movies. I had an uncle that lived in Kansas City, Kansas. We would go visit every Sunday. They like to socialize. They drink a lot of beer and soda. I convinced him to give me the aluminum cans. I used that money to buy my first Super 8mm camera. I bought it at Crick's Camera Store, 63rd and Brookside. And the rest was history. I just was shooting all kinds of stuff. And then the one forced thing that did work out in my life is my mom was very super into church. So I had to go to church every Wednesday, Saturday, and Sunday. But I went to St. James United Methodist Church, and on Saturdays they had youth group. I had youth group, Bible study, youth choir, and in the third hour was the NAACP youth group that I did not want to go to. But I discovered they had this academic competition called AXO. It was 25 different categories. The very last category was filmmaking. So I competed like all 4 years of high school. I won nationals. Came in second one time, and then my best film I ever made was my senior year, but it didn't win anything because the judges thought I cheated and had somebody help me. That's how dope it was. Even though I didn't win or win the scholarship money, the best compliment was they thought I cheated.
Right.
Sean Edwards, man, providing us nuggets for sure. The Black church, in my opinion, one of those key elements missing in our society today, because a lot of programs, a lot of competitions, BTUs, Wedding of the Roses, NAACPs, all those things were spaces for young Black kids to safely figure things out for themselves and be creative. Lengthy interview for sure. Part 2. Stay tuned. Sean Edwards, the producer.